Hi traders. In this video we're going to look at the ZoneTraderPro order flow software, and what we're going to be looking at is the oil market from this morning. What I want to look at is I want to highlight three trading opportunities that together were worth about 120 ticks in the oil market, which is a significant amount. And what we're going to be using to identify these trades are the ZoneTraderPro extension zones and a new feature, which is the delta strength indicator. The delta strength indicator is not the delta of the bar. It's this number 132, 177. And what it does is it gives me an idea intra-bar how strong the delta is. The other number that you're seeing is a number that is found down in the basement, which is the change in the delta. So the change in the delta, when you see it as a red number on top, what you're seeing there is you're seeing an indication that the number of buyers are not as strong for that particular bar, and the delta is being reduced bar on bar, as you see up here. The other thing that you're going to see that this new indicator shows is it shows when there is extremely high volume. Extreme high volume is extremely important because what you're doing is you are identifying areas where the high volume occurred, and what you're seeing is the buyers and sellers coming to meet each other at these prices, and it's no longer a one-way fight. It's now a combination of both bulls and the bears. I use a combination of two charts when making this trade. A smaller time frame chart, which in this case is a 4-range chart, and a larger 7-range chart. This 4-range chart is how I look to get into a trade and also look to get out of a trade. So what we're seeing here is a ZoneTraderPro support zone right here, and coincidentally there was an extreme support zone in the market order history, which are these 5 green extension zones that you're seeing. Down here at the bottom we have a ZTP order flow buy signal, which in and of itself is an excellent reason to be getting into this trade. And then however we have the delta strength signal at 117, which is a good number to indicate that a trade is going to be kicked off here. So what we see is as soon as we get into the trade, we see extension zones start to be created. And that's what's really important here. Where I want to be in and out of a trade is where I see extension zones and their creation. So as the trade progresses and we progress to a strong trend zone and hit it to the tick, we see an exhaustion trade along with a point and control absorption trade. We see trap buyers, and again we see a ZTP order flow sell signal from here. We're given some warning into this trade when we see the lack of buyers here, 319, a 103, and a 40. And again, this delta change number is not going to be a timing indicator. All it's doing is it's functioning like the brakes on a car. So what you're seeing is basically the brakes coming on the car, and at the price level of 69.32, where it makes its high, we have a significant number for the delta strength, and we have that on high volume. This is basically going to be your warning that you should be out of the trade. As soon as the bar closes, it is followed up again with a high volume and again into this POC ZTP order flow pattern, which we have here at the top. That would be an excellent reason to be getting out of this trade. In looking at this on a higher time frame chart, again we have an absorption zone here in the area where the ZTP order flow signal was given, and then we have immediately following we have the creation of extension zones, and then we have that all the way up to the top where we have extension zones to the sell side, and again the POC absorption cell, the trap buyer, and the ZTP order flow cell on a higher time frame chart, giving that signal, giving that more importance to that signal, especially when I see the ZTP order flow on a high time frame chart up there. Again, as we're approaching the top, we again see that we have high volume and about an average delta strength number, and that leads us into the signals where we are going to look to get short. For about the next 4 or 5 minutes, we see a fight going back and forth where there are extension zones being created, and it's basically a battle going back and forth. However, the key to all of this is the prior resistance that we see up there at 69.34. Each time we hit and touch 69.34, the market reacts, and it reacts quite strongly. At 9:15, what we see multiple sell extension zones being created. In looking at the smaller time frame chart, we have a much clearer pattern for an entry, and as described before, what we want to do is we want to take what is described as a low risk opportunity rather than a high risk opportunity. Because the market is traded to a extreme high here on one move and created a strong trend, that's an excellent reason to be getting out of a trade here. However, because it is high risk, what we want to do is we want to wait for a test of a high and some signals up there. So that's what makes this trade here a lower risk trade. And as you can see, we have patterns here where we have both a point and control absorption, a ZTP order flow, and a stopping ratio. Immediately after that, we have extension zones being created to the downside. We again have a stopping ratio here at a trend reversal trade. And again, we have additional extension zones being created all the way down. And the market goes and just continues to create these extension zones to the downside. The first extension zone to the buy side is created at this area down here, almost just one tick from the low. And down here we see again an excellent reason to get long, and that would be the ZTP order flow and both a point and control absorption and extension. This again though is something that would be considered high risk. So what do we want to wait for? Well, we want to wait for it to come back to the intermediate zone, and we again see that what we have is extension zones being created, and that takes us again up to a high up here. And where we'd like to be out of the trade is either here where we see the ZTP order flow sell and an extension zone being created, or here where we have an exhaustion trade and an extension zone being created. And this again is the reason why ZoneTrader Pro is an excellent software suite, because the theory of ZoneTrader Pro is once we have reached this high right here, what's going to happen is, and it's a little bit hard to see because of the extension zones on this chart, we're going to have a retracement back to minor off of this strong trend, and then we're going to trade into an exhaustion. So that's why I say either exiting here at this ZTP order flow is not a bad idea, or waiting a couple more bars and exiting at where we see an exhaustion trade and extension zones being created. What you're doing there is you're leveraging the strength of the ZoneTrader Pro pricing patterns to your advantage and getting out of this exactly, or as near exactly as you can, to the absolute top of this trade. What this looks like on the higher time frame chart again is we again have extension zones being created. They take us all the way down to where again? All the way down to the bottom where we have an extension zone being created along with the ZTP order flow. Then we have high volume, and the way I read this high volume in these bars here is that these are buyers accelerating this and giving you some idea that this is going to be a strong move up. Again, We don't see any red extension zones being created at that first high that we saw in the short time frame, and we don't see them being created here either at the top of the exhaustion trade, and they're not actually created until 2 or 3 minutes later as the market comes down. However, the short time frame chart, which as I said before is great to use as an entry or an exit, does provide you the keys to getting in and out of this trade. Overall, as the market traded up, then down, then up again, we're looking at approximately 120 ticks that were available from the known entry points to this trade, which in 45 minutes is a pretty good payday. If you have any questions, please give me a call, and hope you enjoyed this short video on turning points in the oil market.